What is going on, everyone? Happy Sunday evening. Happy Sacramento. Happy Kings Sunday. Kings go up 1-0 in the series against the Warriors. First playoff game in 16 years. This is the crossover with Rhino. So happy you're here to join me. Guess what? We've got a couple of great guests coming on to break things down and talk about game one. Connor Danzy, always our, Brian Windhorse, Adrian Wojnarowski, everyone that covers sports, knows sports, rolled into one. And also joining us soon will be none other than the one, Grant Napear, to talk about his thoughts on game one and kind of talk about game two and see what the Kings are going to do. I mean, a lot of people did not have the Kings winning game one, including myself. And talk about a hard-fought, scrappy game when they were down. I mean, they were down 10 points in the third quarter, and they found a way to come back. And my goodness, the Kings bench, let's just start there. And I know we're going to talk a lot about Fox, so we can get to him. But the Kings bench was absolutely amazing for them last night. Malik Monk, 30 points. Trey Lyles making huge shots like he was earlier in the season. Heck, Alex Len looking really good out there. Had a big block in the first half that changed the momentum to a degree. I'm very excited. As a Kings fan, I am very excited. I can only imagine what it was like to be there yesterday in person, and what it's going to be like tomorrow to be at G1C. It's going to be off the chains. But anyways, let's wait no longer. Grant will be here in a little bit, but in the meantime, I'm going to bring up my main man, Connor. Connor joining the crossover. What's up, Con, man?
What's up, Rhino? How's it going?
Doing great. How are you doing today?
Doing great after a good Kings win last night.
Dude, what are you thinking about that, man? Can you believe what they did in that fourth quarter?
No, I can't. I mean, it was incredible with Malik Monk and what he was able to do. And then, of course, De'Aaron Fox, one of the best playoff debuts of anyone in NBA history, just came out to play and willed the team to victory.
Absolutely. Yep. We're having some, there we go, connection issues. De'Aaron Fox absolutely willed them to victory. Look, we got people waiting for you already. Look at this, waiting for Connor to bring his knowledge. So I just right off the bat, what are the 2 or 3 things that jumped out to you watching your first taste of Sacramento Kings playoff basketball?
First of all, I thought that the crowd was electric. Obviously, they brought it. They did their part. The players fed off of that. I mean, you heard Harrison Barnes kind of talk about how much it meant to him. And then I think Fox said that Trey Lyles said it was the loudest arena he's ever played in his life. So I think the fans did their part, and that was huge. And then one of my biggest takeaways from this game was that it seemed like the Warriors kind of played their complete game, their kind of A game, their kind of basketball, with Curry doing his thing, and then Poole, Clay, Wiggins played great, and they still lost. And on the other end, the Kings, they kind of had 3 guys, the Kentucky boys, that carried them, and then guys like Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter, and Domas had pretty off games for their expectations, which if they still winning the game is a really good sign, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the Warriors, they did bring their A game to a degree. I think they can play better. They can shoot better from beyond the arc. There's no doubt about that. Andrew Wiggins last night was amazing for the Warriors. And if he plays like that all series, or he continues to trend up, the Kings are going to have a hard time finding an answer for him with his length. He can just do about it all off the bench. And I was really surprised by his performance, because it wasn't like one of those things where he was injured and with the team. He was away from the team for at least 6 to 8 weeks. And to get back in the flow that quickly was really impressive in a playoff atmosphere, in a playoff game, first game that you return. So what do you think about the Warriors? Because I thought they did have their A game, but they're pretty sloppy with the basketball. What are your thoughts on the way that they're playing on the offensive end?
Yeah, well, we knew coming into this series that they were last in the NBA in turnovers, that they were
Yeah.
a sloppy team and stuff. But I think a lot of us expected them to kind of tone that down a little with the start of the playoffs and stuff because of their experience and the championships they've won and stuff. But I mean, I think they like to push, obviously, but the Kings like to push as well. And Curry's going to do his thing, just unbelievable threes that he can hit. He almost had a chance there at the end, but it was kind of an awkward, kind of one handed release, and it didn't go. But I mean, I think the Warriors, they played their game. Draymond Green did his thing, kind of battling down low with Sabonis. I thought Looney did a exceptional job down low against Sabonis. I know a lot of people on the Warriors side were saying that he was going to shut them down, and we both agreed that that wasn't going to happen. But he kind of did in Game 1. But you expect Sabonis to have a big bounce back game tomorrow.
Yeah, I was surprised at how they guarded Sabonis. Because we had our event yesterday at Bennett's, and if you guys came out, thank you so much. We had an awesome turnout. We did the pregame, halftime, and postgame shows from there. But right out of the gate, they were sagging off Domas. I mean, they were giving him a free 20-foot jumper, 23-foot jumper, and we've seen Domas hit the three a decent amount this season. That mid-range has been a little so-so. Yeah, Troy, that's right. Let's go, Connor. I will always interrupt my thought when we get comments. So please comment up, especially when Grant gets here, if you have any questions for him. But I was really surprised that they sagged off him. The mid-range game, sometimes he struggles with that, but do you think that kind of threw Domas off being guarded that way? Because I've not seen a team do that this season.
Yeah, I think it definitely did because the first thing you look at with him is being left open like that would open up more of his passing and stuff. But he had one of the smallest assist totals that he's had all season. I think he only had 2 or 3.
Right.
That was very surprising. And then that jump shot, we've seen him hit it periodically throughout the year. He just doesn't seem like that's what he wants to do. And I don't think Mike Brown really wants that to be his game. Obviously, if he can knock down his first 2 or 3, maybe, then he'll obviously get more confidence. But I think we saw he missed one in the beginning, and then after that, he didn't really look for that shot again.
See, and I think I kind of feel like that's a mistake. That's a shot that Domas can make, and Domas. He needs to at least he needs to start at a certain spot on the court, because when they were sagging off of him, that also affected the dribble handoff and how that was being guarded, and the Kings really weren't running it at that point. And the other thing about sagging off Domas is he's athletic enough. We see him bring the ball up sometimes. He can take his guy to the rim. He scored the first 2 points of the game doing that on Looney. So I hope that they find a way to kind of adjust to that if that's the way they guard him tomorrow night. But I would expect a lot more attention to be on Fox. Troy has a question for us. Thoughts on Trey Lyles and Alex Len's performance last night? Conman, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, let's start with Trey Lyles. I thought that there were a lot of question marks surrounding him going into the playoffs with his performance the last couple games of the regular season, and he came out and he was sniping early. He missed a couple threes, but I mean, he was one of the Kentucky guys with Fox and Monk that are a big reason that the team won the game, hitting 3 after 3 and big shot after big shot. And I think that's huge for this team, along with Monk and Len. Moving on to Len, he was a guy that a lot of Kings fans had questions about what his role would be, especially against the Warriors in this series. But he came in. The Warriors don't really have that physical big man to match up with him, so I think they kind of saw it as a mismatch opportunity. And Len did his thing in limited minutes. He came in, got a lot of rebounds. He had that huge block that got the crowd into the game early, and then he scored a couple baskets. So, I mean, he was exceptional from my perspective.
Yeah, and starting with Lynn, and I agree with what you said. It seemed like the Kings and Mike Brown specifically was grooming Lynn in the end of the season for that type of moment, to be able to play against a team that typically he would not have a good matchup with. Because you look at Len, there's not really a matchup on the floor that favors him, but what does actually become an asset is his size versus that lineup. It's just the speed, agility, etc. But Len has been I mean, he was at halftime, he was a +2 in the plus minus. And he's fitting in with this team. He had a couple cuts that were really nice to the basket. He had to put back that block that you were talking about. And so I think that it's clear Alex Len is the backup for Sabonis, no matter who the Kings play going forward. I don't think it's going to be Metu at all. And I'm good with that. And it's funny that he had been sitting on the bench all season, right?
Yeah, I mean, him and Holmes kind of not playing really at all, and you saw what Len could do. I think a big thing for him, a question mark was Len's play style going to fit into the pace of play that this series was going to be played at? And
Right.
I mean, it seemed like he was fine running up and down the floor and didn't really take it. So that was a huge plus.
Well, and he's not doing it for 40 minutes either. You know, you just need him to come in for a 5-minute spurt, 7-minute spurt. And yeah, he did fine doing that. And I think it's funny because, you know, we talk about how fast Golden State plays, and the Kings definitely played to Golden State's pace last night, which surprised me. I did not think the Kings could play at their pace, even though the Kings do typically play fast. But Lynn looked completely fine. And I think there's an advantage there with the Kings in the size. They, for one time this year, they may have a size advantage against this Warriors team, depending on the lineup that Steve Kerr puts on the floor. As for Trey Lyles, he struggled coming into the playoffs. But, you know, his body of work before that, we knew what he could do and what's possible for him. And I think truly what happened was he had that shoulder injury, which I didn't see anything in game that caused that. But you remember the scuffle with Brook Lopez? All of a sudden, after that scuffle and the suspension, he comes back for one game, and then he plays that game, does not play well. And from there, he goes out and has the shoulder injury. And after that, when he came back to play, his shooting was not there. And it is such the Kings have to have Alex Len and Trey Lyles, specifically Lyles, hitting shots to be able to, you know, win this series or win another game against the Warriors, which will happen tomorrow night. Game 2 again tomorrow night. We're getting another Let's Go Connor. Connor, everybody loves you, my man. You are the guy.
Yeah, those are some of my guys. Shout out to Alex and Troy. They're good supporters of me.
Good stuff. Well, hey, just as I promised, look, last night we were at Bennett's in Roseville, and we did a watch party. Grant Napear and we had so many people come out. Thank you to everyone who came out. It was an awesome time. Thank you to Bennett's for hosting us, Brian. Everything was amazing, and it was a really fun time mingling with the fans and talking with everybody. But as I mentioned earlier, we have the pleasure of the one and only Grant Napear joining us to talk about Game 1 and kind of break down our thoughts on Game 2. Grant, what's going on this evening? You got me, Napes?
All right, you got me here. 1 2 1 2. You got me.
We got
How
you.
are you guys?
Good. How you doing this evening? Got you,
guys.
Connor
it's
here.
To join you. It's pretty amazing that we got another game already tomorrow. What a quick turnaround, huh?
It is a quick turnaround indeed, but maybe that favors the Kings a little bit, Grant. Keep the momentum
how about Jordan
going.
Poole showing up on the injury report, questionable for the Warriors with a sprained ankle? That would be a huge loss for the Warriors if he can't play, or if his production is not very good. I mean, that would be a really big loss for the Warriors. So that just showed up, today on the Warriors injury report, and they need him, I think, in order to win tomorrow night.
Well, he's kind of the leader of that second unit, and he's that guy that blends in also with the starting unit at times. So there's a lot of production that would be lost if he did not play. So, Grant, the Warriors in the Steve Kerr era have only, until last night, lost the first game in a playoff series 3 times. Last night was the 4th time.
Yeah.
What's that mean for the Kings and momentum going forward and the Warriors bouncing back?
You know, it's interesting. I did a show this morning with Larry Kruger from the Bay Area on his YouTube channel. He threw a stat at me that I was not aware of. Under the Steve Kerr era, this Warriors team, Golden State is 30-10 in the playoffs following a loss. Chew on that for a minute. 30-10 following a loss. But what does last night mean for Sacramento? It takes some of the pressure off tomorrow. I mean, had they lost that game and then they lose game 2, the series is over. I mean, so now the Kings are in the driver's seat. What do they say? A series doesn't begin until a team loses on its home floor, right?
Right.
So the Kings have home court advantage. And until they lose a game on the home floor, they're not going to lose a series. So again, the Warriors will win a game in Sacramento. I just can't believe, guys, that Steve Kerr, since coaching the Warriors, they've always won at least one road game in every playoff series.
Right.
Why would I think they're not going to win a road game in this series? The question is it going to be tomorrow? Will it be game 5 or game 7? But I mean, I love the way the Kings played last night, yet Sabonis didn't play the way he normally does. Herter didn't make shots. Murray, the rookie, rough outing in his first go. I mean, are we to really believe that that's going to happen again in game 2? And if those guys play the way they normally do, the Kings will win tomorrow, will they not?
Well, yeah, you would think so. I mean, history tells us that we don't usually see Murray with a donut at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, so I expect those guys to bounce back, Herter to bounce back as well. But let me ask you this, and Connor, I got something for you as well. But Grant, what does the mindset change going into a game 2 if you are the Sacramento Kings and you know you've already got one in your back?
It better not. It better not. Their mindset should be they lost last night. That should be their mindset. And any other mindset is not the right way to go. And I think Mike Brown will make sure that they're aware of that. You need to win 4 games, okay, to go to the next round. Last night was great. It was epic, but last night's in the past. You can't dwell on last night. Their mindset is going to be that they need 3 more wins, and tomorrow night is another opportunity. That needs to be their mindset.
Yeah, and I would hope so. And we were kind of talking about pace before we came on. Connor, do you think the Kings can sustain playing that pace that Golden State plays for a 7-game series?
Yeah, I think they can. Obviously, with the rest days that there are between this series and the youth of this Kings team in comparison to the Warriors, Fox played 40 minutes, and I don't see any reason why his minutes should slow down throughout the series. I mean, he's young. This is his first playoff series. There's no reason why they can't go head-to-head with the Warriors.
I agree. I think you're spot on. I mean, again, after tomorrow, you don't play until Thursday. Then you don't play again until Sunday. You know, he's not really yet in his prime of his NBA career. Why can't he play 40-plus minutes every night in the pace? So I don't think that's an issue at all for Sacramento, guys. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. The starters have played heavy minutes throughout the season, played most games of the season, healthiest team in the league. So especially with that long rest off, I think it's just more of, you know, the Warriors, they can catch you in a bad shooting slump at that pace and jump up 10 points on you in a second. And so that's the only thing that kind of worries me about that. But speaking of De'Aaron Fox, Grant, what do you expect? You and Larry Kruger were talking about this today earlier on his show. How do you expect the Warriors to adjust on guarding him in game 2?
They may have to run an extra defender at him, try to get the ball out of his hands, which means somebody else has got to step up. I mean, has there really been a team this year that's been able to contain De'Aaron Fox? I mean, I think the answer to that question is no, they haven't. So why would I think that that's going to happen now in the playoffs against a team that's not a good defensive team in the Golden State Warriors? But again, this is the defending champs. They've been up against a lot over the years. They've always seemed to navigate their way through it. I mean, they haven't won those multiple championships because they're not good. They're very good. And they have really dealt well when they face adversity. So, I mean, again, I got to believe you're going to see the A version of the Golden State Warriors. Again, I would keep an eye on Jordan Poole. I think that would be a big loss for them.
Sure.
I talked about this with Larry Kruger today, and I would love to get your guys' reaction. Do you think Steve Kerr starts Andrew Wiggins tomorrow night in game 2?
Connor, what do you think?
I think it's a fabulous question. Obviously, he played exceptionally well with the question marks around his play, being away from the team and the game for so long, and he seemed to just kind of intertwine right back into their rotation and everything. Obviously, his three-point shot wasn't 100% there with him missing that big shot at the end of the game and stuff, but I would consider, especially if Poole isn't 100%, plug him into the starting role and see how he does in the first 6 minutes.
So I'm actually opposite of that, Connor. I think it's kind of the Malik Monk theory. I think you need that spark off the bench, and I think Andrew Wiggins brings that. There's more of a benefit to have him kind of as that featured guy in the second unit rather to have him, not to say decoy with Steph and Clay on the court, but he's not going to be the first option. And either way, I mean, he played well. I mean, do we think that Andrew Wiggins can play better and will continue to play better throughout this season? Connor, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously we don't know 100% whether he can sustain this play. Obviously, he's going to have an off game some point in this series, but I mean, he's such a talented player. I think he was the first overall pick in the draft a while ago. He's obviously a great player, and he knows what to do in the playoffs. I mean, he was one of the biggest reasons why they won the championship last season, and I think that there's no reason to expect him to really slow down that much. Maybe he's not the same player he was last year, but he still has a huge role on this team.
Here's the other issue. If Jordan Poole can't play tomorrow, then you really need someone coming off the bench. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo would come off the bench if Andrew Wiggins starts, but those are all decisions that Steve Kerr's going to have to make as we get closer to game time tomorrow. Again, questionable means 50-50 on Poole. I got to believe he's going to play, but how effective will he be? Whether he starts or whether he doesn't start, I think Andrew Wiggins is going to play 30 minutes tomorrow in game 2 at least.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, Grant. I mean, there's not really an answer. Andrew Wiggins is the prototypical guy that bothers the Kings. Prototypical with his build, his game, etc. So we got a question from Alex. This is jumping ahead a little bit. What would you guys say are the keys to success for the Kings to go into a tough crowd at Chase Center? Grant, I'll start with you.
Take care of the basketball. Can't turn the ball over. By the way, I want to point out, you guys, if I duck down a little bit, that's a nice crown on my head, don't you think?
Yeah, looking nice.
That looks good.
Nice,
that's I duck down. I mean, that's pretty cool, isn't it? Grant, I'm styling here with you boys.
We
but
better go full screen on that.
Look at that. See?
There you go.
Honestly, though, I think assist to turnover ratio. Ryan, we have talked about so much during the success of the Kings. When they play well, it's normally because they have 30 assists and they really take care of the basketball. And I think on the road in that environment, I think the number one key, guys, is taking care of the basketball. I really think that's the key.
There you go, Connor.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And the Kings are really used to playing in environments like that on the road and thriving. Obviously, the playoffs are a different animal, but I don't expect Chase Center to be an impossible task. Obviously, the Warriors are a great team at home and especially in the playoffs. But like Grant said, if you take care of the basketball, which they seem to be pretty good at, and they can feed off the Warriors' turnovers, get some fast break points, I think that's the start of a possible upset on the road.
Well, here's the other deal. If the Kings win tomorrow, they don't have to win a game, in San Francisco. Now, big picture, I've said this. I don't think the Kings can win this series if they don't win a game in San Francisco. But, I could be wrong. Could this be the first time that the Warriors don't win a game on the road since Steve Kerr's been coaching the team? I guess it's possible. Again, I always like to go with the percentages, and the percentages would tell me that, not only those analytics, those numbers, those stats, but that this team is really good. They have Hall of Fame players, and you got to figure that, they're going to run into a Kings team that maybe doesn't have their A game one night. I know a lot of people felt that the Kings didn't play their A game last night. Okay, well, maybe if you look at Sabonis and you look at Herter, but overall, I was very impressed with how the Kings played last night. First playoff game in ages, that crowd, defending world champs. I actually was really, I guess, I don't want to say proud, but I gave the Kings an A for the game last night. They withstood a 10-point deficit in the third. They went on a 15-4 run. They withstood the runs of the Warriors in the fourth. They were trailing at times, and they maintained their composure. And down the stretch, they made all the shots in a huge, huge game. I think that's an A grade. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely, Grant. Connor, what would you grade him out at last night?
Yeah, I'd probably give him an A- because obviously the shooting wasn't there outside of Monk, Fox, and Lyles, the Kentucky guys. But you're obviously not going to have Malik Monk scoring 30-something points a game every game. I mean,
no,
he's a streaky player, and we've seen him do it before. But I don't expect him to have that big game tomorrow. But at the same time, you expect Sabonis, Herter, and Murray to give more than they did last night.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm going to give him an A minus too, Connor. So I'm with you, and here's why I'm going to give him an A minus. They get an A because all the reasons that Grant said. They were gritty. They didn't give up. They came back. They didn't get too high. They didn't get too low. But their assist to turnover. Usually we see the Kings near 30 or 30 assists when they win. They only had 18 assists last night and they had 13 turnovers. So that to me tells me they weren't playing their best game. But here's why they get the A minus. They got to the free throw line 32 times. That is a lot of attempts for the Kings, and they made 28, or I believe 26 or 28 of them. So if they can continue to be physical, and they got Golden State into the penalty early in the fourth quarter and do those little things, that's going to set them up to win, in my opinion. So what do you guys think in terms of Golden State's general attempt, or I shouldn't say attempt, scheme tomorrow? Because we know that they've got to change something with Fox. We saw what they wanted to do with Domas kind of hanging off of him. Do you think it's possible you see Golden State kind of drop into a zone or a box and one tomorrow night?
They're going to try something. I think that what they did last night did not work when we look at the Kings shooting percentages. And my point is it works statistically, but they still lost the game, and you got to figure the Kings are going to shoot the ball better. I think the biggest adjustment is what Larry Krueger and I were talking about today is on the other side of the ball. You know, the Kings were guarding Curry and Thompson Wade on the perimeter. Yeah. Larry thinks that the Warriors are going to attack that differently tomorrow. And because when the Kings do that, there's a lot of open space underneath those defenders. And he thinks that the Warriors will attack that differently than they did last night. So I think that's more of a difference. See, to me, if I'm Mike Brown, I don't really change anything going into game 2. I know that my team statistically did not play as well as they're capable of. They still won the game. And if I'm Mike Brown, I might make a subtle change here and there. But I think if the Kings can play 4 more quarters like they did last night, they're going to be up 2-love.
Yeah. Connor, would you make any changes if you were Mike Brown?
No, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's, I mean, kind of the whole situation that the Kings are in. I thought it was surprising that Kessler Edwards never saw the floor. Maybe there could be some spot minutes for him on Andrew Wiggins, but other than that, there's no reason to change the flow that they have so far.
Amen. I agree with you.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head about Kessler. I think that there are minutes for him that can be found, especially chasing around Thompson or even Curry as a bigger defender. The one thing that I would change is they've got to get Sabonis more involved. And I think there were opportunities to do that last night, but the game was just going so quick and they were moving at such a fast pace that, you know, it just didn't happen. I want to see Sabonis not hesitate. I want him, if he has an open shot that's within the offense, take the shot, because sometimes this team can be a little bit unselfish. But you look at the numbers last night, they only shot 32 3-pointers. That is a really low number for the Kings, especially scoring 126 points for the win. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how it comes out. What we do know is it's going to be a heck of a game. Both teams bring it like they did last night. So, Connor, did you get a chance to see Down in the Valley that got posted online a couple days ago?
Yeah, I did. I watched it almost as soon as Grant put out the link. I watched it the night before game 1, and it was an awesome kind of introduction to a new era of Kings basketball in the playoffs. I mean, it was a great production. It was great that the fans didn't have access to it for so long, and for it to kind of just come out right then and there, it was like the perfect moment.
Yeah, it was pretty special. Grant, what are your thoughts on Down in the Valley? You are a huge part of that. The story revolves around you to a degree.
I'll never forget flying to New York for the Tribeca Film Festival to watch the debut of that, and we were just like blown away at the documentary that Jason Hare made. And then, it was at the Crest Theater for 2 showings, and I had seen it a couple of other times. Every time I see it, it's a really emotional time for me, especially the scene with Carmichael Dave and I when I talk about calling him from the golf course in Fred Biletnikoff's golf tournament. I mean, listen, I'm not patting myself on the back or anyone else on the back, okay? The Kings aren't here without Kevin Johnson and David Stern. So let me put that out, okay? But there are very few people other than our wives that know what Dave and I went through during that time. And I've said this, and it's not bragging, it's the truth. There's nobody else in Sacramento that knew more of what was going on behind the scenes than Dave and I. Okay. And we were talking at all hours of the night. We were constantly talking to exchange information. Hey, what do you know? This is what I know. Put it all together. And that went on for a long period of time. And then I've got to go on the radio every day to do a 4-hour show and try to keep the spirits up of the community, knowing what I know, saying, hey, this is not over. You know, that was in the documentary. This is Sacramento. We do things differently here. And we're going to roll our sleeves up to our freaking neck, and we're going to keep this team.
Yep.
And so that was my mantra every day. And when there were bad days, and there were bad days, trust me, there were bad days when I felt the Kings, well, maybe they won't stay. Those were the hardest days for me to go on the radio, because I don't lie. I've always tried to be transparent. And I know I had a lot of people listening to me every single day, waiting for an update and waiting for information. And even on the bad days, I always try to keep people's hopes up. And Dave did the same thing, by the way, okay, with his Playing to Win tour and everything else that he did. So it was when I saw that message on my phone that the Board of Governors had voted to keep the Kings in Sacramento, and my call to Dave, it was the culmination of the most amazing, arduous roller coaster ride that I had ever been on in my life. So it's a phone call that I'll never forget. It's a period of time I will never forget. And it took a lot out of me. I'm not going to lie to you. That was a really difficult time in my life professionally, being the TV announcer for the Kings and then going on the radio every day and trying to navigate my way through everything. That was a very challenging time, but I'm grateful that it turned out the way it did. And that's in the past. And look what happened last night. And hopefully the same thing will happen tomorrow night.
Yeah. How did you negotiate those feelings, Grant? Because there's Grant Napear feelings. There's information that you know that you can't say on the radio per se, or something that may happen or you foresee happening, but you still have to keep that mood up. You have to be positive. How did you play both sides of that fence?
I just did what I always do. I had information. I then tried to sort through it all and make the best educated guess. I had a lot of sources. I was talking to a lot of people. And the one thing I tried to do is not lead anyone astray. I believed in my heart that the team could stay, that they would stay based on all the information that I had, and that it wasn't over until it was over. So I just took that approach. Until the Kings are no longer here, they're still the Sacramento Kings, and let's act accordingly. That's the mantra that I went by.
Connor, what was that time like for you? As a fan, were you part of the movement? Did you think you were losing the team? How'd you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty young at the time. I think I was between like 8 and 10 during that whole saga and everything. But yeah, I remember the hard days, and just it was year after year of loss. And then at the thought of the movement and everything, it was like, am I really only going to have this bad basketball experience? I'm never going to get to witness this team win anything. And it was just a horrifying thought to imagine that the team would never play again, and I would never even get to witness any sort of success that we're witnessing today.
Yeah, it was a very it was a roller coaster, like Grant said many times. That documentary, I told you last night, Grant, the call between you and Dave that you referenced here on the show, the fact that there's video of that made it into the film is amazing. But I also thought Dave broke it down absolutely perfectly. And it's so straightforward what he said.
It was great. I mean, the whole documentary was great. I'm so happy that so many people got a chance to see it. Now, I don't normally do this, but I'm going to do it with you guys. I have to do another interview here in 3 minutes, okay, in Indiana. So I got to wrap this up because they're expecting me to get online and do another interview. So I got to duck out.
Well, make sure, Grant, make sure your crown is on perfectly for that interview. Okay. Turn that off.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us, Grant. All right. Go Kings. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you, guys.
All right. The great Grant Napear doing a media tour everywhere. Awesome to have him, man. But yeah, I was gonna say that time when Dave sat there and goes, "Look, if you take the Kings away from Sacramento, Sacramento has nothing. You know, you can take the Sonics out of Seattle. They still have the Seahawks and the Mariners. You can take, and he named off all these cities, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's the perfectly straightforward thought that you should have, but when you hear it in a serious manner and you just process that for a second, like Sacramento with no basketball, what would we have? We wouldn't have anything. I mean, really, what would we be doing, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, at least now we have the Sac Republic, but I mean, other than that, absolutely nothing. I liked the comparison that I think someone in the documentary brought up of the Green Bay Packers and how that's all they have, and they're
Yep.
kind of owned by the people and stuff. And I think that's a perfect comparison to the Kings. If they were gone, I mean, what would those people have? This isn't some city that attracts a bunch of people for tourism and stuff. So the city really rallied around the Kings, and the Kings were basically an equivalent of how the economy was going back then and everything, and basically just the city in a nutshell. It was a perfect representation of everything there.
Yes, it was. It was a perfect representation. It was perfect timing for that to come out the day before the Kings take the floor in the playoffs for the first time in 16 years. All right, so game 2, we've kind of talked about it, and we've kind of beat around the bush. We talked about Kings matchups, defense, what Golden State may do better. I am terrified that Golden State's going to come out in some type of zone defense against the Kings tomorrow, because that to me would be a big problem if the Kings are not making their shots, because it's like hanging a big piece of cheese in front of a hungry rat saying, here, take this 3, take this 3. And we know that most of the Kings have a green light to shoot the 3 ball. I mean, what do you think, and how do you think that would play out if they do come out and play zone tomorrow?
Yeah, you don't want to be kind of baited into that trap of just shooting 3 after 3. Obviously, I think that the fact that Murray and Herter struggled so poorly in game 1, that they're bound to have better success in game 2 if they're faced with a zone defense. But I mean, a zone defense and the Sacramento Kings, that's just two things that don't go together. I mean, it's like a peanut butter and fish sandwich. There's absolutely no correlation there. And if the Kings are met with that zone, they're going to have to figure out a way to combat it. Obviously, we talk about in the past Sabonis and him opening up his game when he's faced with a zone defense. But obviously, I mean, it's a scary sight to see.
Yeah, it is. They would just have to have more movement, and they would have to, not run their man offense against the zone. They'd have to do something completely different. And I'm sure Mike Brown's kind of prepared them for that situation. They saw enough zone towards the end of the season. Hopefully they can figure that out. I guess my worry, even though we had the bench and we kind of talked on this earlier, we got the huge production from Lyles. We got huge production from Monk. We didn't really get anything from Murray and Herter. My worry is if we don't get production from the bench and Murray and Herter just have marginal games, like maybe 11 points and 9 points each. What's going to happen then? That's not going to be a formula for the Kings to win.
Yeah, and obviously it put him in a difficult situation because, Curry's going to get his stuff. You know that between Clay, Wiggins, and Poole, at least I'd say 2 of them are going to have pretty good shooting nights. But the Kings, it comes down to you rely on guys like Keegan Murray. And I thought that Mike Brown, he did the same thing that he did almost the entire regular season with Keegan Murray. His first couple shots don't go in, then he basically takes him out the rest of the game. I think he only played about 15 minutes, and obviously it turns out it was the right decision because Monk and Lyles came in off the bench and they stepped up. So, that's the button that Mike Brown pushes. But if you're Keegan Murray, it's got to be tough to kind of if you can't really get into the swing of things. His shot, it's a lot of a mental aspect, so it's tough for him to kind of get into a groove when the minutes aren't there.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's for any type of basketball player, but especially a shooter, you know. And the problem, and people forget, Keegan is a rookie. That's what he's done as a rookie has been incredible. But he's a set shooter. Like, he is not somebody that's going to take you off the dribble. He's not somebody that's going to create his own shot, but he needs to become that type of player. And I do think Mike Brown needs to have a little bit more of a leash with him if Keegan can play solid on the other end of the court, because there are some advantages to having him on the court defensively against the Warriors. But Keegan's going to have to find a different way, or the coaching staff is going to have to find a way to get him open in spots that he is comfortable with, because he's not going to be your Malik Monk. He's not going to be your De'Aaron Fox that can get to where they want anytime they want. So we will see what happens with that. I thought you brought up a great point about Kessler Edwards. I was shocked Kessler did not get any minutes in that game. I mean, how would you see him affecting the game defensively if Mike Brown calls his number tomorrow night?
Yeah, I don't see any reason that he shouldn't see the floor any more than Mitchell. You see what Mitchell does on offense, it's practically nothing. I mean, I'm basically putting up the numbers he is on offense, and I'm sitting on the couch at home. But obviously, Kessler Edwards brings a little more size, obviously, than Mitchell. He's a perfect matchup for a guy like Andrew Wiggins or DiVincenzo, and then even Poole and Curry. I mean, I think he can stick with the guards a little bit. So give him some minutes, and if he can hit a couple shots, like we've seen, he has the ability to do that, then I think his role will only increase as the playoffs go on.
Yeah, I think he is the perfect person to put on Wiggins. And here's the thing. So Davion Mitchell, he is good on ball. That is where he thrives. He is a great on ball defender, but he's not as good of a defender when he's chasing guys and going through screens. And that's a whole different story. Kessler Edwards, he is excellent at that. He is so good at chasing guys, fighting through screens. And I just feel like it would actually benefit the Kings to have him, or at least split some of those minutes with Davion. Because like you said, it's going to be a wash offensively. I know Davion, I think, what did he have, 5 points last night? Or he had around 5 points at halftime, I want to say. But you're Davion, you might get a drive to the hoop, you might get a 3-pointer from him, but other than that, you're not going to get much. I think Edwards shoots three ball decently, or just as good as Mitchell. Yeah, Mitchell only had 3 points. It was that one 3-pointer. So there you go. So let's get to game 2. I mean, Connor, what are your predictions? Do you think the Kings go up 2-0, or do you think that it is going to be a split headed to to San Francisco?
Well, like we've talked about before the series even began, a split at home to start the series was kind of like a dream scenario for this team, just to get one win under your belt and then head out on the road and try to get another split. But I mean, it's pretty crazy to think about a possible 2-0 series lead against the defending champions, and I mean, it's a very good possibility. Obviously, you're gonna see the Warriors. They're a team that's been through it all. They're gonna have a short term memory for this next game. Obviously, they're gonna come out. You're gonna expect your A game, your Steph Curry MVP caliber performance. But I mean, we saw something similar to that. I think in Game 1 when the Kings they did not play their A+ perfect game. So
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance that the Kings win. I'm not sure. I'm probably right in the middle between who wins it right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Kings are on the bus up 2-0 to Golden State.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Here's the thing: Golden State, they shot 53 pointers last night, and they will probably they're number one in the NBA for 3-pointers attempted. They'll probably shoot 50 again. They only shot 32%, so that's not a high percentage for them. But conversely, they had 31 assists. So they were sharing the ball and playing pretty decent basketball. Kings out rebounded them by 11. I look at some of those stats. I don't know. Will Golden State out rebound Sacramento? Probably. I look at the assists. the fact that Golden State had 31 assists in that losing effort, it's surprising me because usually 30 assists is going to be a win. And the Kings were very low with their assists last night, even though they played at that higher tempo. So I think that we will see a concerted effort to get Herter going. And people don't give Kevin Herter enough credit for his defense. Kevin does a great for who he is asked to guard. He does a very, very respectable job, and he did a good job last night. Can he do that same job again? We will see, but I think they're going to make a concerted effort to get him involved. Keegan, I think there may be a quicker leash on him if he's not getting involved because, really, what do we have him on the floor for? What's the one thing he's on the floor for, Connor?
To shoot threes.
That's it. He barely rebounds. He might have an assist here and there. And so I would expect a little bit of a quicker leash there and look to them to go a little bit more at Harrison Barnes. I think you can kind of, go to that tree a little bit more if you want to. And I think Mike Brown's going to ride the bench heavy. He's going to ride Monk. He's going to ride Lyles heavy. And so I look at Lyles and Monk, and I think those two players are probably more important than Herter and Keegan Murray, what they do and how they come out, because that is where the Kings are going to really have to get that edge in that winning score. And you're going to have to, you can't just have one guy tomorrow night that's going alongside Fox, because they are going to come out and they're going to do something. They're going to, double him. I'm not going to say they're going to go to a box and one, but that means, somebody else is going to be open. And usually that person that's open is either going to shoot that shot or shoot it or pass it to somebody else really quickly for a shot. And so that's why I say you got to have multiple guys that are feeling it and kind of in that zone. So I see it going both ways. I think ultimately the Warriors come out on top tomorrow night, but I do think it's going to be a fun and close game. I think this one's going 7. That was my prediction. Do you see it the same way still, Connor?
Yeah, my original prediction was Kings in 7, and I haven't seen anything so far in Game 1 that would make me change that prediction just because of how back and forth and kind of a classic game we had in Game 1. There's no reason, unless maybe Jordan Poole isn't good to go, that it would be any different in Game 2.
Yep, exactly, and that's big news as dropped here on the crossover by Grant Napear. Poole is questionable with a sprained ankle, and a sprained ankle that's not like a little tweak. That can be very difficult to play with, especially for a player like Poole that is cutting all the time. That is making a ton of lateral movements and relies on that first step. And that is going to be hard for him to negotiate if he does get it wrapped up and plays. I thought last night the balance was good. I credit to all of you Sacramento Kings fans for, showing up and keeping that momentum going. It really didn't look like there were a ton of Warriors fans, huh, Connor?
Yeah, I think a lot of people coming into the series were kind of expecting the Warriors to just kind of take over Golden One Center, was kind of the narrative around it. And turns out there's probably about 10% Warriors fans, and one of their celebrity fans got kicked out of the game and stuff. And I expect the Kings at Chase Center to have even more fans than there were Warriors fans at Golden One.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Kings fans, regardless of what happens tomorrow night, they are going to travel in force to Oakland for both games, and it's going to be exciting. So have you had a chance to catch any of the other playoffs going on right now?
Yeah, I've been just kind of checking my phone in the games, and today it's pretty unbelievable the injuries that we've seen to the superstar players. It's just kind of freak injuries. You saw the falls from John Morant and Giannis, and then Tyler Hero broke his hand. It's just freak injuries and a crazy day of NBA basketball.
Very crazy. And if Giannis, you saw his fall, right?
Yeah.
That looks like a classic tailbone. And let me tell you, if you have ever bruised or fractured your tailbone, That is extremely painful. I can't. I don't know how Giannis would be able to play with that if that's what it is, and obviously we'll find out more in the next day or so. But speaking of Giannis, what did you think of this?
Yeah,
What the hell is he wearing?
I mean, he's known for his fashion statements. He kind of went a la Dylan Brooks with that outfit. So, I mean, pretty funny appearance to come into a game like.
A playoff game? That's how you come into a playoff game?
Yeah, I don't know.
Holy.
It's the style of some of these players these days. It's just unbelievable. It used to be the old suit and tie and kind of locked in, but now it's just they do whatever they want and they get away with it.
Somewhere, David Stern is rolling over in his grave. Like, this would not fly in David Stern's league. But I don't know. I guess maybe it's a call for attention, but I don't know. Doesn't that kind of speak to, like, and maybe I'm being a talking head here and I'm taking it too far. Like, does that speak to, like, it's more about me and, like, I'm really not taking this game too serious? Like, I get it if it's game 59 with, the Atlanta Hawks coming to town, you show up dressed like that. But for game one of the playoffs, when you're the number one seed and you're the team that's expected to probably win the championship.
Yeah, I mean, I don't read too much into it. I think that's just kind of the direction the NBA has been trending the last few years. They kind of just they wear whatever they want. We've seen the outfits that Kyle Kuzma has showed up to
Yeah.
games in, and I think it's obviously it's not that they don't care about the game and everything. I just think they're kind of trying to send a message about their style and stuff.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I am not going to be wearing that outfit anytime soon. I can assure you of that. You thinking about getting out to a playoff game now that you've seen one on TV?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look at the atmosphere outside of Golden One Center. It was incredible. It looked like the Deer District in Milwaukee or the stuff set up in Toronto for the Raptors in 2019. It was incredible.
Yep.
I mean, the city was they've been waiting for this, and you saw they showed up in a big way.
Yep. It's gonna be fun, especially, and they're gonna be doing watch parties if you don't know. For the away games at Golden One Center, tickets are free. They go on sale they go on sale Tuesday morning. After game 2, and it's just a free ticket. You can go into the building and watch the game with 17,000 other people, or you can come to our watch parties tomorrow. Grant is going to be at Soul Street. That's spelled SEOUL Street in downtown Sacramento or midtown Sacramento. It's a Korean restaurant. He will be broadcasting live from there. Come down, meet him, buy a shirt, hang out, watch the game with him. Like I said last night, we were at Bennett's. What a wonderful time, as always. Great host, great sponsor. And yeah, so come out to Soul Street. We'll be doing our same pregame, halftime, and postgame shows. So join us for those. But go out and meet Grant if you're not going to the game. He would love to see you out there. And we do have our new playoff shirts that are behind me with the beam coming out of Grant's hand. Next time, I guess we're going to have to do a crown since he showed up on this show wearing a crown of lights. But anyways, yeah, so go check that out. All right, Con Man, thank you so much for joining the crossover. I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun, especially with Grant's insight today.
Absolutely. We'll keep doing this as the playoffs go along. So have a great night, my friend, and go Kings.
You too. Go Kings.
All right. What a night. Good, quick crossovers. I cannot thank Grant. Oops, my bad. Everybody wanted Connor to come back on. I can't thank Grant enough for coming on tonight for a few minutes just to talk game 1 and talk game 2. And Connor, as always, just straight knowledge. This guy is amazing, and knows the game inside out, knows sports inside and out. So that's always really cool. Man, if you guys did not get a chance to watch it, please go watch Down in the Valley. That again, the fact that came out right before game one after 16 years, it was meant to be. There's no other way to put it. If you had the chance to already watch it and you watched it before game one, it made game one that much more special. It really shows everything that this city has been through, and what this city, the love affair this city has with this team, and what this run, what it means to this city, whether they win or lose, doesn't matter. It's just about the run and the moment and being able to, be a part of it. And it pulls us all together. There's so many differences these days that are talked about, why people are this way or why this person's that way. There's more things talked about why we're being pulled apart, but something like this playoff run, there's one common thing that pulls all of us together, and that is black, purple, and silver. We all bleed it here in Sacramento, and it's just a really cool time to be here. And so, anyways, we're looking forward to game 2. Should be interesting to see what they do. Grant talked about, and I know he was on Larry Krueger's show, he talked about, what they may do with Fox. Larry actually talked about that specifically. But, not a lot of teams, this has to be said, not a lot of teams have doubled Fox this year. Or I should say, I can't think of a single team that has doubled Fox early in the game, meaning not when it's clutch time, under 5 minutes. And we may see that tomorrow night from the Warriors. So we're going to have to see how the Kings can react to that. Doesn't mean that Fox is going to be taken out. It just means that other guys are going to have to step up. And there's still ways to find Fox opportunities, because there will be a lot of rotations defensively going on if he is being doubled, which could, somebody make a mental error, out of place, Fox makes a good cut, he can get himself open as well. So anyways, all right, for Connor, for Grant Napear, thank you so much for joining the crossover. We will be back tomorrow before game 2. Also, don't forget, I believe, a 3:00 show with Sean Salisbury tomorrow on If You Don't Like That. But anyways, go Kings. Have a great rest of your Sunday. For Connor, for Grant, I am Ryan in Sacktown. So long.